dilemma of the shiny metal object syndrome, which is what I called every time you chase something different every single week. But I think I've been successful enough that I've chased the right shiny objects and avoided the ones that probably wouldn't have led me down the right path. So that's a hard question, Harv.
Well, you did well. Okay, next, thanks.
My wife.
Is she here?
She's here, isn't she?
She is here.
No kidding.
Where is Sandy? She's someplace back there.
Yeah.
Now, I think...
Oh, there she is. She's over there. At the end.
There she is, way over there.
Hey, give us a wave over there.
I think it really is true that having somebody that will help hold you to a higher standard than what you're willing to do yourself. And to me, it's the singularly most powerful, I'll tear up talking about it, it's the singularly most powerful force in my life, bar none. I've been very fortunate in my life to have some great mentors. I started to say mentors a minute ago because I got hired by a couple guys right out of school who were multi, hundreds of millions of dollars. And I became their assistant. And having them in my life, having people around me in my life that are smarter than I am, that will teach me, that will hold me to a higher standard. And at this point in my life, it is Sandy. So that's my answer.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah.
Harv, last time I was up here, I had to follow Koopman, and now you got me beside Keith here. Great answer. As far as my personal success goes, definitely I would have to say it's focus, and more than just focus, it's focus on the area of the business that I love, which for me is pure research. So my business went to the next level when I truly asked myself, what in my business do I love? And it turned out it was research. So I started hiring staff to basically take care of all the areas that I didn't really love. And that was like paperwork. And in my business, you know, we're just choked with paperwork. We deal with people's money. And trust me, it doesn't make my clients any money by dealing with paperwork. So when I truly started focusing on what I loved, my business took off. And yeah, that's basically it.
Great, good answer, yes.
Surrounding myself with brilliant people, people that are a lot smarter than I am. I think for anybody, one of the best skills that we can develop is being self-critical. Understanding really what you're good at, focusing on that, and bringing people around you that can fill in the gaps and do everything else. I think that's one thing that I'm good at. I know what I'm good at. I don't try and do everything else. I have some absolutely brilliant partners that fill in the gaps, and together we make a great team. The concept of a self-made man or a self-made woman, I think, is garbage. You know, nothing of significance is created in the world outside of, you know, a team, and there's always people that have input that aren't necessarily right up here on the stage, but they're in behind you, and without them, you're only a shadow of what you appear.
Right, well, that's one of the things we talk about a lot in our programs, isn't it? That you can make it on your own, but not very high, not very big, you know, and not very fun necessarily. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Sid.
Boy, somebody beat me when I was going to say my wife. That was terrific. Actually, I think I already mentioned it. My real focus in life, and I really instill this in my kids, is constant, never-ending improvement. It never stops. Whatever I'm doing, I always try to watch other people. I watch other speakers, and I don't necessarily listen to what they're saying per se as the topic, but I watch what they're doing, how they're doing it. If I see someone in business, I ask myself, what are they doing that makes them successful and why? I'm always analyzing things to be better. And I say this to my kids, good enough to me is never good enough.
Excellent, thank you. Hey, give me a round of applause. Oh, yeah, hold on. We changed the order, so one more here. Sorry, I apologize for that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to repeat some of what was already said. The thing that's really helped me has been that I absolutely love what I do. I honestly would probably do this for free if it didn't pay so well. I get up in the morning, I can't wait to get to work. When I go on vacation, I like my vacation, I like all that kind of stuff, but eventually I say, I want to do something. I want to get back to work. I'm research-oriented as well. And I think the other thing that happens, and it happens easily if you absolutely love what you do, is that you're able to create value. It's not a job, it's a mission. The way you make money is by creating value for people. In financial services, which is what I do, I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you make rich people richer, you're going to get rich. Rich people are willing to pay you a lot to make them richer. If you love what you do, if you can't help but do it, you can't help but create value. And you can't get rich if you don't create value. So figure out something that you do so well that you're going to get ahead naturally because the person that you're competing with has a job and you have a life. And you can't miss. You can't miss.
Excellent. Before we do that, I want to add to that. One of the things, again, I've been on a bit of a tour lately, and I don't know, lately I've been ragging on people a lot more. I don't know if it's my stage of life or whatever, but, they just got to get it. And, I just get in their face. I have a tendency to do that, yes? And especially the newbies, the ones who've never met me before, and the ones that are really quiet and spiritual, oh my God, I just kind of lace right into them so bad. And so, because, I think they need shock therapy is what they need, right? That's what I think, because they're just so la-di-da-di that for a lot of them, they're broke. So what do they need? The la-di-da-di hasn't made them rich. So they need some shock therapy to have some energy that looks like this. Right? Along with this, that puts them a nice full person, right? Anyways, but what I've been saying to them is that raise your hand if you're not doing well financially. And then I go, you're broke because you're not helping people. I don't care what you say and I don't care what you think. Obviously, you're not helping a heck of a lot of people. It's very simple. You get paid for helping people. You're a problem solver. If you're broke, you're not solving a heck of a lot of problems for many people, at least in the way they want to receive it. Does that make any sense at all? And they just are in shock. And they're like, I get people running to the bathroom, throwing up, all kinds of stuff. Oh my God, you said I wasn't helping people, but I do help people. Yeah, how? Well, I do aromatherapy and I help. How many customers do you have a week? Well, I help like 4 people a week. Well, how about 400? Is that going to work for you? And they go, well, how would I do that? Well, so if you help 4 people, you're going to get paid for helping 4 people. Hello? That's the way it works, right? So as I've said to many other people, I want everyone's homework to be right now is to help 10 times the number of people you're helping right now. Solve problems for 10 times the number. If you have 100 people in your business that you're helping 100 customers, make it 1,000 as quickly as possible. That's what you get paid for, solving problems for people. Does that make sense? All right, give these guys a big round of applause. Okay, one of the things that happens for many people is we run across obstacles. Yes? Raise your hand if that's ever happened to you. All right. I'm going to ask each one of our wonderful panelists is, what was your biggest financial disappointment or disaster? And what did you learn from it, and how did you turn it around? And really, what was the thinking behind it, okay? So a disaster of sorts, especially financially, a disappointment or disaster. What did you learn from it, and how did you turn that around? Because you obviously did. And again, what was the thinking behind that? What happens when an obstacle comes around? What's the thought process, and how did you turn around? All right, we're going to start right over here with Keith this time, right? Yeah, I know. Well, we'll come back to you. Don't worry.
In the 1980s, I was a very, very aggressive real estate developer. I'd already made a ton of money in cable television, made a ton more in real estate in Texas, and anybody who remembers back to that time will remember a little poem that I heard one time that goes, "Money talks, I can't deny. I heard it once, say goodbye." And I spent 4 years, I had about $200 million of personal liability debt, and I started a real estate company about 4 years prior to that. And I had made a lot of money, and then a lot of things happened, including my own hubris. And I wound up losing all my money. And so for 4 years, I was spent every day, all day long, negotiating with the federal government because all my banks had failed. I was negotiating with the federal government to repay somehow $200 million. I
said a big financial disaster. Okay, go ahead. We'll take this one for now. Yeah,
I
nothing
did.
else.
I repaid it. I gave them back their property and a ton of cash, and I negotiated my way out of it. In 1990, my accountants came to me and told me that first of all, they said congratulations. Secondly, they said that I had created a $9 million tax liability to the IRS for forgiveness of debt. And I said, what's my options? And they said, pay it or go broke. And so February the 12th, I'll never forget this day, in 1991, I declared personal bankruptcy. And it was the singularly most devastating day of my life, primarily because I had my net worth and my self-worth entwined, which is another way of saying that who I was on the inside was no longer about who I was, but instead it had everything to do with what I had and what I did. And so I took a sabbatical. That's how I got out of it. I took an 18-month sabbatical. I did not know how long it was going to last. I studied the world's religions. I read 200 books on philosophy, all the ologies, philosophy, theology, psychology. And ultimately, the way I describe this, and I know I'm going 1 second long, but if I can just tell this last little story. The way I describe this time period is it's like being on a basketball court at halftime, and I'm jogging off the court, and I glance back up at the scoreboard as I'm heading to the locker room, and the score says it's 87-3. The other guy's winning. And so as I'm in the locker room at halftime, I kept asking myself the question, how am I going to win this game? And it turns out that was the wrong question. The question I began asking, and it's the question that really changed my life and allowed me to emerge from this dark hole that I was in. The question is not how can I win the game? The question is how will I play the second half? And the instant I changed the question, then suddenly my life started working. I rebuilt my net worth. It doesn't take long once you know how to do it. It took me 2.5 years. And I had more money coming at that point than I did going into bankruptcy. And I've learned that this thing we call failure is not falling down, but it's rather not getting back up. And that was one of the key things that kept coming to me, is that I'm not what I do. And you're not what you do. We are who we are. And the doingness has nothing to do with it. So that's my disaster.
Very good. Thank you. That was excellent.
Well, I think mine's going to pale in comparison to Keith's.
You know what? Your self-worth can't be tied to your panel worth. We need to teach Brent that. Okay?
Fair enough.
Who you are is not this panel, Brent. You got to get that.
Thank goodness
You're
for that.
You're much more than that.
A recent obstacle, it was a very large obstacle, was about a year and a bit ago. After being at a firm for 19 years, I decided to move firms. Now, when you're moving firms, you've got to take all your clients with you, and you've got to kind of do it covertly. And so I'm in the process of moving somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 or 500 clients over to the new firm. And about, I would say maybe 80 to 90 of them were somewhat new clients that had been with me for a year, maybe people that had come through these doors. And literally, I think 20 days before the actual move, before I could spring it on people and let them know that they would have to follow me to another firm, one of the companies that we'd invested in, and we invest in micro-cap stocks, there is risk, went bankrupt. And, you know, that wasn't so difficult to explain to the sort of 300 or 400 people that had been with me for a long time. But it was very difficult to explain to these 50 people that were affected that were new clients. And to garner their trust and come with me despite, you know, taking a real personal hit to their portfolios, and that I would do everything I could in my power to get them where they wanted to be. And so, to a man, they all came, and that was pretty amazing. And, you know, to a man, I know every one of those people and every one of those names, and I mark them off as I get them to where they wanted to be. And there's still a few left, and I know who they are, and they'll get there. But that was very difficult, and I just really was honored in the trust that they'd shown me.
Excellent, great. Thank you.
In
We'll do the applause after the whole thing.
In Rick's presentation earlier this afternoon, he talked about don't mistake a bull market for brilliance. I made that mistake. At what was the top of the first cycle that I was really a significant investor in, I decided that I would buy a home with a significant amount of leverage, and that the tax that I was going to owe for selling the stock to buy the home, that I would put off making allocation for that tax till sometime later in the tax year, closer to when the bill was due. Again, because I was brilliant, you understand, and I've got it all planned and everything's going to work out. Well, it didn't. In the course of about 8 months, my portfolio was worth 1/10 of what it had been. I never made provision for the tax that was owing, and ended up having to sell my home, which was a big thing for me at the time, and it was more of an emotional and more of a profile thing than anything else. But I had two options. The home was in my wife's name. I had the option of telling Revenue Canada, listen, come on down, have my portfolio, do what you can, you're only going to get a small percentage of it, but I don't own the home. Or to exhibit what I was raised to do and what I wanted to show to my boys, and I wanted to show them some integrity. And the decision was sell the house, pay the tax bill, and get on with it. And it was a difficult decision, but I think that the answer to one of the earlier questions about, you know, the most important thing in your life, for me, it's also my wife and my family, but my wife in particular, who at no time during this period of time of humble